little information. You know, you just don't see any local information. And we don't either really get access on the media to what's happening in other countries these days either.
We have every day at 11 o'clock the Premier, the Health Minister, and the medical staff give about 40-minute dissertation on what's happened in New South Wales, what the variants are doing. And really, I think it's a PR exercise to keep everybody moving with them. So, you know, because there are a lot of people, I mean, here, the situation's so different. People are well. And it's summertime and you want to go to the beach and swim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do have a lot of information.
Is it different in Wales though, Gary? You know, I mean, and they're managing the parts of the UK differently.
Well, we're in pretty tight lockdown. I mean, you know, you're not supposed to drive anywhere. If you're gonna exercise, you have to exercise from home. So you leave from home and you return home from your exercise, or walking or cycling or whatever. You're not supposed to drive anywhere. So that's the kind of situation. I mean, in our local supermarket now, they're only letting one member of the family in to do the shopping. You can't go as a couple anymore. So it's that kind of stuff. So when all the pubs are closed, so it's a bit of a disaster. So yeah. So I mean, it's been quite a while since the last time. What I'd like to do is I'd like to give you just a quick tour of the Google Drive and check that everyone has got access.
I can't do that.
Yeah. But what I'd also like to do is I'd like to give anyone on the call, the opportunity to share with people their experiences, related to this topic over the last, I think it's almost a month since we last spoke, and to refocus perhaps on what it is we want to go forward with, especially with the opportunity of the journal series, for instance. So yeah, so shall I show you the Google Drive thing first?
Yeah, please.
So I've sent you all the link, and I know that some of you have been having problems getting into it. I think if you have a Gmail account, then that makes things an awful lot easier. If you have an academic account or an institutional account, then I think that might make things harder to get in. So if people do have issues following the link and getting into this structure, then let me know. But you all have editorial rights. And the way I've structured things is I've got essentially an online folder for each of the topics that were identified in the little summary that we were creating. So all of these are empty at the moment, but the idea is that obviously the work on the papers that we do would go into these folders. Here's one folder which has got some content in. So there are a number of little bits of presentations and things in here that you can get hold of. I've got the notes from our meeting in this one, and I've captured the audios in here, so you can listen to the audios. And I've also got a colleague of mine to create textual transcripts of our conversations as well. The textual, the intelligence behind it isn't perfect, but it does a pretty good job of capturing what it was that we said. It doesn't record who said it, but I think that a lot of the stuff that is in here could potentially be useful in our papers. So it's well worth taking a trawl through this, you know, when we start to write our papers about, you know, potentially useful content that we can, you know, use to develop.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is a bit of a pain. This is one of the problems with Zoom. It cuts out the top bar. Right, I'll start sharing again. So here we've got the summary that we're all working on. I can't recall which of these is the very latest. But here we've got the paper that you were working on. I just put this into it's stored in Google Docs. We can all edit it, yeah. So
Yeah,
that's all in there. So annoying.
well, that's good.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, all the stuff is in there.
Yeah.
And if you do have problems with it, let's try and work those out, yeah, because we need that sort of areas to share and collaborate, you know, rather than using the emails, which we all found, you know, a little bit difficult towards the end because there was just so much information and knowledge being shared.
Yeah, I think that was a problem, wasn't it? I mean, it was just overwhelming, I think. And I think having a system is good like this. And there was one thing I just wanted to check in on today because I wanted to make sure that we were also, you know, delivering things as we went because I think that's the beauty of such a group like this. I mean, the talking is really amazing and that obviously has to happen, but I think we also should be getting stuff out there. And I don't really know the best strategy for that, but I'm mindful that people's time's precious, particularly as all of us on both sides of the world are talking after hours. And so it would be good to be thinking, maybe not even today, but just over the next few times when we meet of ensuring that we're having some impact out there as well with this group. Yeah, thank you, Gary.
The thing I can't understand, Gary, is how you upload to it.
Right. Okay. I can probably give you a let me try and give you a quick demonstration, perhaps. Yeah. Although this is really annoying. Right. So it's just like you know, a normal folder system. You know, what you can do is you can if you open up a particular folder like this one here, let's see, I think you can,
New, yeah.
you can then press on new, and you can do file upload or folder upload, and then what you do is you grab the file on your PC and then just drag it into the screen, and it then goes in. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah.
I
So
do know. Yeah.
so I can just, let's see, if I just take this one here
Yeah.
from
I
a
know.
normal folder and then drop it on there. Yeah. It then goes in. So it's as simple as that.
Yeah. All right. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And let me reassure you, there's you can't do anything disastrous with this. Because you know we can roll back. It's all it has configuration management embedded in. So if we need to restore stuff, that's easy to do. So I'd encourage you just have a little bit of play with it, just to get used to using it.
Can you resend the link? And do I have to take this thing into my Google Drive, or are you sending it to my Google Drive?
this drive is in let's say my area, yeah. So when you edit it, you're editing my area.
But when I open it up, I have to enter it up. I open it up from my email, not from my Google Drive.
It should still, I think it should still appear in your Google Drive as information which has been shared with you. Yeah.
It doesn't actually.
Okay.
I think you have to accept it first, Eugenie. Like, I think if you click on the link in the email, because I've just done it, and it comes up and you say accept invitation, and then once you've done that, then it will appear in your Google Drive.
Okay.
And it will come under, there's a folder, it's not in your drive, there's one that says shared with me.
Yeah, I looked in shared with me.
Yeah, but I think you've got to copy the link in the email first and accept the invitation.
Yeah, well, I'll try that later. But yeah, so can you resend the link in case I've lost it in the mess?
Okay, yeah. What I've also done is I've just put the link in the chat. So I'm guessing that if you click on that, that will take you to the, where the data is as well.
Yeah, I've got you.
Yes. But I can email that to everybody as well. So did that work for you then, Eugenie? If you click on that link.
If I've got to highlight the whole thing and just right click, nothing happens. I think I have to copy it into Chrome.
Yeah, in the chat, you might just be able to left click on it and it will take you straight there.
Yeah. Yeah, you can.
Has it? Mine has it.
Just normally click on it.
I did.
With the left click?
Yeah, left click. No, yes, a left click.
Yeah.
Nothing's happening.
Okay.
Well, I can put that into Chrome though. And how come you guys can do it?
Are you using a Mac?
Yeah, I am using a Mac. But
there you go.
I'm using a Mac too.
Kirsty's using a Mac.
Yeah.
There's some special bit you click on, Kirsty.
No, I just clicked right in the middle and it comes up with like a little hand.
I've got the little hand.
Yeah, so once you've got a little hand, just left click.
I've done that.
And then does it bring up your Chrome?
Nah.
Yeah, maybe you could share your screen, Eugenie. Because, if we can solve your problem, then that might solve anybody else's as well.
Or I would just copy that link, Eugenie, and paste it.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Did that work for you, Jennifer? You're on mute. Are you okay?
Yep, I got into it. I've been able to access it from the beginning, so thank you.
Okay. Bevan, Richard, are you okay?
Yes, I am. I'm only a little way, but I think I'll work my way through it. If not, I'll call Simon.
Okay. And Felix, you're okay, aren't you? I think you had to use your Gmail in the end, didn't you? I don't think your institutional BCSS let you in.
Okay. Yes, I'm in.
Okay. Bevan, are you okay?
Yes, I've got a brand new Mac Air, so it's got better microphones, and
yeah, we can hear you.
Good. I'm just trying to find my way around it, but I'll do some work on it later. But
yeah,
actually, if you go into Google, if you go into Chrome and cut and paste it, it will work.
Okay, cool.
I've just done that.
Okay. Right. So we have, let's see, I think we have about we have 9 papers. We've got I'll share my screen again. I mean, this is what we had in mind, and I'm suspecting that we're all going to help each other out. We're not going to write all of the papers individually. but I had in mind that perhaps each of us could take a paper and then to start, you know, fleshing it out with some ideas, perhaps drawing on some of the content from our discussions. But is that a good way to do this? You know, to sort of allocate, you know, a lead author to each thing, and then to, you know, just to start making some progress.
Do we have these in that Précis that
Yes.
document, so you can
Yeah.
virtually work out which papers
Yeah.
we've already done that work.
Yeah. So I can't remember which one of these.
I think it's the Seed Project one.
This one, yeah?
Yeah.
That's the latest, we think. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I did a bit of a synthesis of this. What I did is I took all of the topics that were in here, and that's how I sort of came up with the different papers, rightly or wrongly. So can I on that? Yeah, so I've got the overview.
Yeah.
How did we get here? Thinking and acting differently. Data, information, misinformation, knowledge and wisdom. Variability in individual biology and complexity. Antiviral technologies. Whole system perspective modeling. Digital healthcare technologies, and societal change and practice. Does that bear any relationship to what was actually in here?
I think that's great, Gary.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay.
I think, yeah, I mean, if you go down, there's some that you've expanded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is much tidier than what we had. So
Yeah.
thank you. I'm just comparing it with the one that I uploaded
Okay.
in early December, and it wasn't as fleshed out as this. So I think this is better.
Yeah.
Well,
there's also a group that's contacted me, Danny Hoyer from Melbourne, and they wanted to submit a paper to the same journal on just vaccine technology. And I was going to raise today whether or not we should invite them to join this group.
Mm.
No, not this group, but because this group's getting too big, I think, but we probably, whether or not, if other people approach us or me, because I'm now in the deputy editor role, whether if we've got gaps that need to be filled, could we just bring them to this group and ask if they could write a specific paper?
Yeah, that'd be super. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I was approached circumstantially by a colleague in COSI, International Council on Systems Engineering, who's been creating an application for essentially monitoring symptoms which might be indicative of COVID infection. I think he would be interested in helping to write something on digital healthcare, for instance. And
me. Because
Yeah.
so if I just jumped the gun there, the reason I'm saying it because immediately I had this thought of I've been involved in the New Zealand rollout, the vaccine stuff. Was my role at Pharma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I think they think I'm a New Zealander, but I'm actually quite struck by the fact that New Zealand has IT systems and a digitised information system that actually can enable a rollout across the whole country all at once. They can collect information. They know who's had what.
Yeah, super.
Yeah, they know where everyone lives. And in Australia, we're really struggling even just to get hospitals to talk to each other with IT systems. So I think we don't even have an electronic health record here. So I'm just saying, I think that sort of paper would be really, really helpful.
Okay. Yeah.
But Jenny, we have the great advantage here of a fragmented health state system
Yeah,
that doesn't talk to each other.
Is that an advantage, Richard? I don't know.
Yeah. For the virus, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the other thing that we talked about last time was potentially working on this paper first to collectively to capture the overall theme, and then that would be then, if you like, a skeleton that we could flesh out with all of the other papers.
Yeah.
Did I capture that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You know, that overarching almost coat hanger is just so critical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was going to make a comment, and that is that the environment around that paper is changing so quickly. And for us to be contemporary, we have to have our eye on that change.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the discussion is elsewhere, but the one in Australia at the moment now is around, are the vaccines driving to herd immunity, or are they driving to individual benefit? And this seems pretty fundamental and a pretty late discussion, to be honest.
Yeah, I was. I was chatting with my mum just a couple of days ago. You know, who's in her late 70s, and she's been self-isolating. You know, from way back since March, and she's been asked by, you know, her friends whether she you know wants to take the vaccine or not, and she's been asking me questions about whether she should take it or not, and I've been saying, well, personally, you know, I would wait a little while to find out more about what's actually happening, but then we got onto the conversation of, well, actually, and my mum actually said this, she said, they shouldn't be vaccinating people like me. They should be vaccinating the kids.
Exactly.
And the people who are going out there and being social, because you know, here I am, you know, staying at home. You know, I'm not at risk really.
Exactly.
Yeah. The people who are spreading it are the young and the social. And they're the people who should be getting the vaccine, not the elderly. And I said,
but you don't know that the vaccines stop transmission. So we do know that they stop severe disease. So and there is a total difference between those two. Stopping transmission is a very high aim of vaccinology, I've learned. And so in a sense, I would say that she's better off having the vaccine because she won't get as sick. Whereas the young people will not get sick, and you don't know that you'll not transmission. So it could be a lose-lose.
I didn't really have much data in the elderly. That's my only concern for this. I mean, I've got lots of concerns, obviously, but the data for the interim analysis of the pooled data that was in the Lancet, only one of those 4 studies that was in the Lancet actually had some elderly patients. And they weren't even that elderly. I think they were like over 70. And most of the people in our nursing homes are over 90. So I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what the right thing to do is, to be honest, but I think it's good to be asking these questions. But I think you're right. I think the thing in the UK is there's much more of a hurry to get people safe. And I think, you know, in this part of the world, we probably have got time to see how that all rolls out. Not that we want you to be guinea pigs, Gary and Kerry.
We are.
We are.
Guinea pigs for Pfizer. Thanks for that. But we can. It gives us an extra few weeks to try and, because the other thing I noticed was that the dose was probably a bit high, because in the low dose group of that pooled analysis, the low dose group actually had less better efficacy, and actually they did have less transmission than the standard dose. So they're now doing, I think in Oxford, another additional arm where they're looking at low dose versus standard dose. And And I mean, this all should have been done before registration, but obviously it's emergency registration. But I think that data is helpful because it also means our vaccines go twice as far. And the efficacy after one dose was actually pretty good. It was around 50 to 60%, which, I mean, it's not great, but it means, I think, then that if we get really short, that giving people just the one dose should actually make some difference, even if we don't have enough doses for all of them. I know it's not ideal, but I think this is all really important information. But in the meantime, as Richard says, what about all the people who are in the other 50% and, you know, do get sick? We still haven't got a therapeutic, and we still actually need to wash our hands and have social distancing. So I think all the other parts of this review are still very, very relevant. And I don't think that vaccines are going to make it all disappear.
Jenny, I couldn't agree more, but I'd like to go back to Eugenie's comments because it's fundamental. And that is the difference between herd immunity and individual protection determines whether or not we have a future that's the same as we have with influenza, where the virus never goes away but changes and keeps coming back every year as a change. In other words, that'll, as far as the globe is concerned, that will just stay with the globe like influenza is. Or if we do have herd immunity, it'll ultimately disappear like some other viruses have. It seems to me such a fundamental question, and it seems to be so worrying that that question is being now raised so late in this process. And in a systems analysis, that question would have been right up the front if we had that in place. And Gary, that's why what you're doing is just, and Felix and the others, is just so much on the ball. We've got to change this, the thinking. If you look at one of the great innovators in the US, Buckminster Fuller, he used to say all the time, and he was absolutely right, you can never change the fundamentals of a system internally. You must replace it with an alternative system. And the alternative system here is alternative thinking, which is systems thinking. Because if we had systems thinking, we wouldn't be learning on the job like we're doing at the moment.
Mind you, you can't blame people for panicking. I mean, that's what we're really looking at, is a panic situation. And you get that here every time there's a cluster in Sydney. Everyone shuts their borders down and people from New South Wales can go nowhere. And if I go to Sydney, I can't go to the GP up here because I'm contaminated. So, you know, there's a real panic mentality, even when you're controlling the clusters.
Oh, you're absolutely right, Jenny. And that's why it's so nice in Adelaide, surrounded by desert.
Yeah.
Well, what I can, so I keep doing this. I keep volunteering to do stuff when I really shouldn't. But what I can do is I can start to put together the outline for that paper in terms of the topics. You know, so the overview paper. What I'll do is I'll try and capture all of the topics within those 8 different sections. Trying to get some real meat out of the text that we've discussed over the you know the 3 or 4 sessions we've had so far, and then I can share that as a starting point for then people to start chipping in with, you know, with all of the elaboration that we need. Yeah, and then through that process we can perhaps start to find some natural owners for the other 8 papers. Yeah, so I'll do that. I sent you around a link to a short talk on systems thinking from someone at the CDC.
It was very good when I listened to it.
Okay, yeah, and there was some really nice stuff in that. And I think he referred to Barry Richmond's work, Kerry, because I know you're very familiar with Barry Richmond and his work on systems dynamics.
Yes.
So So I've been doing Kerry's aware of this, I've been doing some work on systems thinking and systems science recently in terms of an overall frame. And there might be some aspects of that we might be able to utilize as well as we go through the papers, because I'll share it with you. I hadn't intended to share it with you, but I will if that's okay. Just to give you an idea of where my mind is going. So this has been developing for quite some time, really. Basically, what we've been trying to do is we've been trying to develop an integrative framework for system science for a shared orientation. And I know this is very rich, but basically what we've got across the top in terms of the horizontal is the way that knowledge develops, and it also relates to the scientific method. So here we've got concepts, here we have general systems theories, here we've got principles which are derived from frameworks, and here we've got assets, and then society as the whole, which is our subject of engagement. So this is essentially the life cycle of understanding, and this relates to all sorts of different frameworks like observe, orient, decide, and act from Boyce Codd, from Kynafin, from David Snowden, and all sorts of stuff. It also relates fairly well to our engineering process as well, sort of conceptualization, architecture, design, realization, and then the subject that you're working within. And here we've got categories of knowledge related to categories of knowledge about systems. And here we've got the more tangible things at the top about, you know, identity, behavior, and cycles. And then things start to get more intangible with capability, value, and consciousness. And some of you are probably familiar with Jungian theory and Myers-Briggs. Yeah, so you can also relate Myers-Briggs and you know, extroversion, introversion, perception, judgment, intuition, sensing, thinking, feeling, and then in the center you've got wholeness as well. And what we've done is we've identified 12 different clusters of, let's say, systemic issues. So things like chaos and conflict, limited choices, not seeing the connection flow of causality. Many of these things were actually discussed in that CDC talk that I sent round. You know, lack of information, knowledge, appreciation. And what we've done is we've put these non-systemic features at the contact points between what you might consider to be areas of empowerment, yeah, empowerment for change. So research, technical, action, decisions, political, philosophy, spirit living, social, and design. So in between philosophy and political, for instance, you've got no vision of the future situation, and drawing on a number of different systems thinking and system acting works, we can start to describe the movement or the pathway from non-systemic to systemic. And this is what it starts to look like. Yeah, so if you're here with no vision of the future situation, you can utilize the power of philosophy by finding your place and purpose. And there's, you know, guidance, methods to help you to do that. When you're not seeing the connection or flow of causality, you can make those dynamics explicit, engaging with the technical power, or with political power, you can start to plan ahead. So it's that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's very, very simple, but it's potentially very powerful.
I think it's absolutely lovely. I can see Trump in the technical political.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So it might be that we might be able to use some of this as we work through the papers to analyze the particular problems which we're facing, and then using systems thinking to think about how we engage with power to elicit the change that we need.
Gary, I think that's just brilliant. What I was doing in my mind's eye when you were running through that was doing a comparison between 1918 and 2020.
Mm.
And I bet you find they're almost identical and superimposable.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's really good too. And I think one of the issues we've had in this pandemic is the leadership. And I think we've had leaders around the world that have very much been in that power and control little quadrant that you had up before. And it's not so much sort of understanding the parts and how they fit together and how one thing flows onto another. It's basically a focus on outcome. And obviously because they're narcissists as well, it's often been looking at how good does this look for me? But we haven't really had any of those political, those skills in these area of like wholeness or political balance. Things that you might have seen with Barack Obama, or we do see with Angela Merkel and Jacinda Ardern, the people that, so they're leaders that think of these sort of problems in slightly different ways. And whilst that might not be great in a big war, they're probably leadership skills that are really helpful in something like this. And so I think maybe we can sort of focus on that as well. I mean, I don't want to go out publicly and make a statement about Trump, but I think we all know what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
But I think certainly that in a pandemic, it does call for skills that, you know, the thinking and judging might not be as good as the feeling and perceiving, for example. Well, I don't know if I got that right, but just
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
wording that we
Yeah.
use here.
There's
Yeah.
no vision for future situations.
Yeah.
Really start to look at climate change there.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, if you look at the way things, let's say, work in the world at the moment, there's a great deal of emphasis on this right-hand side, and certainly not enough of this other end. Yeah.
Have you? Is this on the in the little box?
I could put it in there. Yeah, I actually wasn't intending to show this, but it just seemed to flow nicely with the conversation. The other thing that came up today, I was sharing this with a colleague, and what he was saying is that you know, these arrows are one way at the moment. They're sort of like the positive flow. Yeah, what you can do to address these particular problems. But when you consider, you know, politicians and particular self-interests, they actually drive these directions in the opposite direction. So for instance, you know, causing a lack of information, knowledge and appreciation, or a divergence, false information in order to I don't know, manipulate the situation. So I think that sometimes this nature of things is manipulated to suit individual purposes, which are maybe great for the individuals but bad for the whole, if that kind of makes sense. And I think that when we take this forward, because you know this is something that I'm hoping that the ISSS and the systems institutions will get behind. I'm hoping that we can start to see both the positive and the negative dynamics in this overall chart. So I think it's useful to make these things explicit so that you can then relate them to the situations and the methods and tools that you can employ to start to try and encourage you know, a more systems perspective to do the right things at the right time in the right way, rather than the manipulation of the system, which is potentially great for the individuals or groups of individuals, but bad for the whole.
Like the coal industry here.
Yeah.
Gary, I was thinking when I was looking at that schematic, if I was a virus, where would I go next?
Yes.
A lot of opportunity there.
Yeah. So, you know, we've only got 15 minutes left, and I'm aware that I've kind of hogged the conversation quite a bit, and I'm sorry about that, but I hope it's been useful and interesting. Let's give everybody the chance to you know, communicate the things that are on their mind at the moment and where they're going. So let's start off with Kirsty, and then Bevan and Kerry, because you haven't, and also Felix, because you haven't spoken at all yet, really. So Kirsty, let's start with you. Oh, you're on mute.
maybe I would be. It would be better if I would be more or less the last speaker, or one of the last speakers,
Okay.
because you had such a wonderful conversation, and I'm a little bit more focused on what to write or what to do the next step in order to have material where we can work on it. Because, for instance, this very nice diagram scheme is, in my understanding, is a little bit complex. So there should be one paper just presenting the scope of system thinking, so the variety of systems approaches. And my main focus is the finding out how to help the people who do not respond to the vaccination, and the people who are sick right now and are in danger to die. This thousands of people right now in Austria, and to give an idea to the pharmacologists and the clinicians what the systemic physiology would mean. And this is the idea of the fast response of the immune system, and the slower components, and the imbalance between interleukins and cortisol on the other side, and all these things. So this is my main interest and Gary was so nice and gave me a private session with the Insight Maker. With a modeling tool, and so I'm still on this way to.
Okay, so would you like to share a little bit of that later then, would you?
Pardon?
Would you like to share a little bit of that model later? Is that what you're hoping?
Yes, I think I will start on a very simple design of the model, and I would like to present a brief.
Felix, can you turn your sound up? Felix, can you turn your sound up?
My sound, okay. Yes. Okay. Is it better now?
Yeah, much better.
Sorry.
Getting nearer the mic helps, I think.
Yes, I'm closer to the microphone. Okay. Yeah. So the next time I will work on this.
Okay. So you'll share that next time.
Of a very simple model, like a balancing model or so, with some references to the literature which I know right now. And so
okay.
we could build it. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool. All right, Kirsty.
Yeah. So I guess for me, the things that I've been thinking about are things I've been thinking about for a while, which is why some people are getting sick and some people aren't, and we still don't know. And also, like as everyone's talked about today, the vaccines and how's all this going to turn out. And I have to apologize, I've been a bit preoccupied with a few other projects at the moment, but I'm happy to contribute however I can, in the next coming bit. So excuse my silence. I've just been a bit swamped.
We have Christmas as well, remember?
Yes. But yeah, Eugenie will know I've got a couple of grants coming up in the next couple of weeks. So just harass me if you need me to do something. I'm going to say that now, but it's not because I'm not interested. It's just because, yeah, I'm being pulled in too many directions.
Okay. Yeah, no, I understand. Okay, Bevan, let's test out that microphone of yours.
All right, you hearing me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I've been quite busy trying to raise money for grants for my postdoc who does the NRF2 studies. And we've actually got a letter of intent due in today, 3 pages, for repurposing drugs to treat motor neurone disease. And there's a very rich foundation in Victoria which funds that sort of research. And I've found a paper from a Brazilian group that shows that the duloxetine, which is a common antidepressant, activates NRF2. So we're going to repeat it and make sure they're right, and then use that as a repurposed drug and do studies in rodents to see what's the dose and the frequency to activate the enzymes that the NRF2 activates, and build up a case for giving it into, well, first into human volunteers, but then into people with onset of motor neurone disease. So we're hoping they will like that, and that will fund this guy for the next 3 years if they accept our letter of intent. So that's what we're focusing on at the moment.
Yeah. And you think that agents in that area might be beneficial with long COVID as well?
Yes, yeah. So particularly in sepsis, as evidence that if you can activate the NRF2, that overcomes the sepsis effects as well. So it's a matter of spreading it, to other areas once you've got the person funded.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, I had a really good friend who died last year of motor neurone disease, which is very sad. She was a big systems thinker, so that's it's great that you're doing work in that area. It is really important. So I appreciate that. Thanks, Bevan. So Jennifer.
I think I've already spoken, haven't I?
Yes. Anything else on your mind?
No, I'm keen to sort of work on that paper with Fedson and Richard, the broader issues, and it may be that we can work with you, Gary, or someone with some of those points that you highlighted on those systems, the mental processes of how people. Because it might be that the way that we've been thinking about this pandemic, which has been manifest in the sort of decisions we've made on our research, is because of people going down little sort of rabbit warrens and not really seeing this big picture. So I think some of that psychological stuff might be helpful. Yeah, and I think, and coming back to that vaccine thing, I think that it's sort of, you can see it rolling out with the vaccine discussions as well, that there are people that are really panicking almost and saying, even though we haven't got COVID here, we want the vaccine so that when it comes, we'll be ready. And there's another involved in that saying, hang on, we've got time to sit back and wait and watch and learn. And let's try and make sure we've got the process right before we just roll it out willy-nilly and make a mistake or something. And so, yeah, so it's almost like there's two sort of groups of people, and the poor government and chief medical officer are kind of stuck in the middle. But so I think that psychological stuff is actually quite important, because it really really affects the way leaders make decisions and things like the pandemic. So I'm just sort of reflecting on that and how it might come into that background paper.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Gary.
Right, thanks, Jennifer. Kerry.
Yeah, I guess, can everybody hear me?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I guess two things really I've been going through my mind. One of them is the diagram that Gary showed, and he talked about the way that some of that is being potentially manipulated by individuals, that whole picture.
Yeah.
And, systems thinking is an interesting thing because it's kind of a double-edged sword. And you can use it to achieve good and bad ends. And the thing that I've been thinking of, which I'm thinking of as being systems thinking, but with a more than, is kind of ethical thinking. And how can you bring ethical thinking into this? So rather than applying systems thinking to parts, as we often end up doing to optimize parts, we truly try and look at the whole. And I think COVID is one instance where we really, really need to look at the whole, so to speak. And then the other thing, I've just recently been involved in an experiment over the last 3 days, which was taking another systems tool created by a great systems thinker called Stafford Beer. And as well as creating the viable systems model, he also created a technology for bringing big groups of people together to make agreements, which is called Syntegration. And this has been a technology that was used in groups in real settings, you know, face to face. But the experiment was, could we translate it and make it work on the internet so you could truly bring people from across the world together with this technology? And, you know, I can't help thinking that this kind of big ethical thinking, together with more integration with people across the world on this topic, could really bring, you know, a lot of new thinking to this space.
Thanks. Is that something that we could perhaps integrate into the paper? You know, on technologies, for instance, and healthcare. Maybe we could put it into that.
Yeah. Indeed.
Is that something you could share with us a little bit more next time, Kerry?
Yes, certainly. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Thanks.
Actually, can I interject? I was really impressed with what Kerry just said. And I was just trying to visualize your thinking model done in an ethical way versus a non-ethical way. And can you, I mean, there are two components to me. One is how you can manipulate the system, as Kerry pointed out. And one of the big things with COVID is panic. Manipulate the system. And therefore, if you took that and tried to do that and then compared it to the cool, logical and ethical model side by side, and predicted the outcomes of both, you might get quite a nice, you might be able to make quite a nice point. And perhaps that should be part of the upfront, not down in the technical, but upfront in the introduction or the overview.
Yeah. Challenge
that was
accepted.
actually.
Yeah, go ahead, Felix.
Yeah, I agree fully. And I was sending around the slides from Ray Eisen, and he's in Australia. I think he's a really, really great guy. And he is also using this approach from the Stafford Beer and the School of Systemic Management, so to say. And they have the keyword transdisciplinarity, which is similar to this Syntegry of the Stafford Beer procedure. So bring together all the stakeholders, then define the problem together, then define a commonly shared model. Then you try to get data and information. Then you try to explore the system. Next step, you try to find a solution. So there is a step-by-step procedure how to collectively define the problem and try to find a solution. And if all the stakeholders are coming together, there is no real need for ethical rule which has to be, you know. So if you, for instance, the vaccination, if they say they integrate the people from the healthcare because they want to they want to force the people in the healthcare, the politicians in Austria want to force the people in healthcare to take the vaccination. But some people have several reasons why they don't want to take the vaccination. So if they would have a group where they share their opinions and then they find a collective solution, it would be much better. But it doesn't happen because the style of management in established politics is just top down and not bottom up. You know, so there's no real communication cycle between the stakeholders, and this might be under the keyword systemic management. This would be a suggestion for the authorities right now. They have no good style to communicate with the population.
So yes, Stefan, Jennifer. Yes. don't wait to start. Yeah, thanks, Felix. I was just wondering if maybe someone in this team in Australia would like to maybe set up some conversations with Ray. because you know
Yes.
Felix has opened the door. I mean, I know Ray as well. He's a great guy, and his books on systemic governance are really good. Yeah. So if someone who is more interested in the social aspects of engaging
Yes.
with political change, I mean,
Yes.
maybe Jennifer, maybe you might be interested in having a chat with
Yeah, I'm
Ray.
really interested. I think it'd be good. I'm sorry if I've missed an email. I can't seem to find his address in the emails, but would someone be able to maybe introduce us? Would that be all right?
Yeah, could you do that, Felix?
Oh,
Introduce Jennifer to Ray.
Yes.
Yeah.
And would we? I mean, could he help us with one of the documents?
Yes, I'm sure he could.
Of course.
Yeah.
He has, he's very efficient in writing
I
papers.
hear you, Felix.
We could invite him to give a 15 minutes presentation or something like that. We have a certain meeting on what should how should politics reorganized according to systems criteria or something like that. We could give a very fascinating paper.
Yeah.
Gary, for those of us who are totally ignorant, and my chooks are making a loud noise and I can't hear very well.
Bye, Jennifer.
Could you tell us who you're talking about and how we can look up this person?
His name is Ray Ison. I can put a link into the I can send you an email with with his credentials.
Yes, please.
Basically, he's a professor at the Open University. He's the president of the International Society for Systems Research. He's written a number of books. He also helped to organize and chair a big event about 4 or 5 years ago. It was cyber systemic opportunities for the Anthropocene. So he's big on he's very big on systems thinking, systems acting, in governance.
How do you spell his name?
ISON, Ray Ison.
Got you.
Yeah.
Sorry, my chooks want breakfast, and they're outside the window making a big.
I can hear them.
Yeah, he's just. I'll send you his Wikipedia. He's described as an Australian environmental scientist.
I sent the mail. I have found the mail and I send it to you.
Yeah, there's Ray on Wikipedia. Okay, so Eugenie, anything else you'd like to add or that's on your mind?
I've virtually said everything relating to what, but I must say, I've been thinking about ARBs as anti-angiogenic factors, and you suddenly realize you can't use them because your blood pressure will fall through the floor unless you're a hypertensive. So I do think if we're going to go further with talking about drugs that block the renin-angiotensin system, we've got to take in consideration the adverse effect that which is really the counter to what you use them for.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're not using them as anti-angiogenic factors in COVID, but there is a potential for them to be anti-angiogenic, which be clinically useful in cancer and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I suppose it highlights the pros and cons of drugs.
Yeah. I mean that's the problem with. I think we talked about this in one of our sessions. Within our systems, there are positive and negative relators. But for pretty much all of these systems have dual pathways of positivity and negativity. And it all depends on circumstances as to which channel you go down, depending on the circumstances. Richard.
Thanks, Gary. I've also covered quite a few issues, but I'd like to say three things briefly. One is, Gary, I think this is just so much on the money. It's fantastic, this approach. It's just so needed, and I'm so enthusiastic about it. The second thing is we've got to be so mindful of the shifting landscape. In other words, it seems to me that that no matter where you look, it's almost a reactionary response to this virus. It's a day by day, learn on the job thing. And we've got to be mindful of what we put together is aware of that and plays into that, because otherwise it could be dismissed fairly as history. We don't want that to occur, and I don't think it will. The third thing I want to highlight, and I keep going back to it, is we're looking at the virus and what it's doing. I think we have to constantly put our mindset in that of the virus. In other words, what is the virus teaching us? And what has the virus taught us in 12 months? Well, it's taught us a little bit of RNA can turn the whole globe into chaos. And and if you take that further down the systems road, the notion that intelligence has to be associated with the neuron is ridiculous. Intelligence can be associated with evolutionary pressure. Intelligence can be associated with the smallest number of nucleotides and a tiny bit of protein. And unless we really understand that process, then we don't know what we're up against. And to show that in reality, Jenny and I have just, when we published a fairly comprehensive paper on COVID in the British Journal of Clinical Pharmacology, and in that paper we said that if you look at the ACE sites that virus hits, based on structural biology, there are multiple sites that can hit. So that virus will know the following. One, it can't give up that site. It can't give up the RAS system, otherwise it'll defeat itself. But it can work within that in multiple sites. And sure enough, we now have a mutation that's now appeared. Now, whether it's hitting different sites or got high affinity, doesn't matter. But it's our lack of understanding that intelligence can be associated with processes beyond the neuron in a systems way, which makes this absolutely fantastic in terms of this approach.
I don't know, Richard, I think it might be the Gaia concept, taking revenge on the human race for exploiting and destroying the planet by using a little tiny weeny weapon.
Yeah, well, it certainly is so potent, so powerful, and we really just, we're babes in the woods here.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if what comparisons there are with the evolution of cells and multicellular organisms, with this this evolution of Gaia, as you say, Eugenie. What parallels are there to be learnt from the formation of for instance, nucleated cells, and this nucleated Gaia, of which we might provide some additional intelligence beyond what you would find in I don't know, in the natural structures. Anyway.
Well, what we have is the capacity to destroy the natural structures.
Yeah.
What you're looking at is the natural structures taking their revenge and possibly actually correcting the balance.
Yes.
Gary, I think you're absolutely on the money. I put together a trilogy. I haven't published it yet, but I'm happy to share it with you, with all of you, looking at moving from multicellular systems, from single cellular systems to multi, and the consequences. And the reality is that a virus has gone down a road of simplicity, lethality with simplicity. Humans have gone down a road of complexity. And we've tried to offset the lethality by adding even more complexity, very complex immune systems and God knows what else in our processes. So that's what the battle is about. The battle is about between simplicity and complexity in biologically evolved systems. And at the moment, the virus has got us up against the wall.
I'm going to have to introduce you to George Mobus, Richard, and a group of people who are looking at the emergence of complexity in terms of the different levels of complexity, all the way up from quarks to culture, one of the people that we have in the group is Tyler Volt, who wrote a brilliant little book. It's actually called From Quarks to Culture. And what he proposes is 12 levels of systems complexity, where brand new levels of complexity are formed by building through what he calls a process of combogenesis, lower level things forming into higher level things, and emergent complexity and new affordances for relationships at all of these different levels. So that I'm going to have to get you involved in that conversation as well. So prepare for some more discussion.
I will. I'll send you what I've put together.
Okay,
as well.
it's great. Okay, right. Well, I'll try and get the transcript of this converted into text again and post it into the area, and I'll make a start on pulling together some information in terms of the overall structure for the paper at the weekend, bringing in a lot of what we've discussed, and then we can all start to chip in and elaborate on it later.
Super.
Okay, thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Good to
Thank
see
you.
Right,
Bye-bye.
bye.
Good go. Bye.